3,000 meters below the surface, where sunlight died an hour ago. Something is hunting. The water here isn't just dark. It's a pressure chamber that would crush human bones into splinters. 300 atmospheres of force per square inch, cold enough to stop your heart in minutes. And in this void, a sperm whale has just detected movement. Its heart slows. 60 beats per minute at the surface, now down to 10. The whale's body is shutting down everything non-essential, redirecting oxygen to the brain and muscles. It's been holding its breath for 40 minutes, then it fires. A sound so loud it would rupture your eardrums. Rapid-fire clicks hammer through the darkness like underwater gunfire, each one carrying more acoustic energy than a jet engine at takeoff. The whale is scanning, mapping, building a three-dimensional image of something enormous moving in the depths below. And then the echo comes back. Something with arms longer than a bus. A body studded with suckers ringed in razor-sharp hooks. The largest invertebrate on Earth. A colossal squid. Click, click, click. For most animals on Earth, life happens in the light, but sperm whales live in a world almost no creature ever enters. A vertical universe stretching miles beneath the surface, where pressure crushes metal and sunlight has never existed. What makes sperm whales so strange is not just their size, or their brain, or their power, it's how little we actually know about them. For an animal as big as an airplane, they are practically invisible. They spend more than 70% of their lives in a zone humans cannot reach. A place so deep, our submarines struggle to survive for even a few minutes, and almost none of it has ever been witnessed. We study lions, tigers, sharks, because we can see them, but sperm whales. We study shadows, echoes, scars. They are the closest thing Earth has to real sea monsters. Not in the sense of being terrifying, but in the sense of being unknown. Even their daily routines are a mystery. We still don't know how they choose when to dive, or how long they truly sleep, or how they navigate oceans the size of continents. Sometimes, scientists observe entire groups of sperm whales just floating vertically in the water, motionless, like a drifting forest of grey pillars sleeping upright. No one knows why. Then there's the way they communicate. Sperm whales speak in sequences of clicks called codas. Patterns so complex, some scientists think they may form regional dialects, or possibly the early structure of a true language. Imagine an animal whose brain is 6 times larger than ours. Living in a world we've never seen, speaking in a code we still don't understand. Every once in a while, the deep allows a glimpse, and when it does, it changes everything. Divers have encountered sperm whales in moments that shouldn't be possible. You're hanging there in open water, weightless, vulnerable, and then something massive moves toward you through the blue. The clicks start softer than you'd expect, deliberate. The whale is scanning you from the inside out, your lungs, your ribs, your heartbeat, building a full 3-dimensional image of what you are. And then it just hovers there, watching. Sometimes they tilt their bodies, positioning themselves to read the echoes better. Sometimes they circle slowly, clicking in patterns that sound almost conversational. And in rare moments, moments that leave people shaking, they respond. These aren't coincidences. These are interactions. Because here's what breaks you. These animals have brains 6 times larger than ours. They possess the same neural structures linked to compassion, love and language in humans. And they've had them for 15 million years longer than we have. They might be speaking one of the most sophisticated languages on Earth. And despite everything we've done to them, the centuries of slaughter, the near extinction, when we enter their world, defenseless and curious, they don't flee. They don't attack. They turn around. They try to understand us. Giants with the power to kill, choosing instead to communicate, to connect. We hunted them to the edge of extinction. And still, they let us close enough to realize we're in the presence of an intelligence we've barely begun to comprehend. A mind reaching out to meet ours. For centuries, humans only knew sperm whales from the surface, and everything about them felt wrong. Sailors in the 1700s called them sea devils, leviathans. Some thought they were the kraken itself, the monster from the stories, rising from the abyss to drag ships into the deep. Because when you're standing on the deck of a wooden vessel in the middle of the Atlantic, and a 15-metre-long head emerges
we hunted
from the fog,
them to the edge of
breathing
extinction.
out a plume of mist,
And still,
that
they let us
like
close enough
death.
to realise we're in the
You don't
presence of
think
an
mammal,
intelligence
you
we've
think
barely
nightmare.
begun to comprehend.
The sounds didn't help.
A mind reaching
Ships
out
would
to
pass
meet
through
ours.
open ocean
For centuries,
and hear it.
humans only knew
Loud,
sperm
rhythmic
whales
knocking
coming
from
from below.
and everything about them
Like
felt
something wrong.
massive hammering against the hull from underneath. Crews thought they were being stalked. Some believed it was spirits. Others thought the ship was breaking apart. It was sperm whales communicating. And then there were the scars. When whalers finally started killing these animals in numbers large enough to examine them closely, they found something that terrified them. Circular marks covering the whales' heads and bodies, some nearly a foot across, ringed with smaller cuts like teeth marks, suction cup scars. If the whales looked like this, what the hell were they fighting? The myth of the giant squid was born not from imagination, but from evidence carved into living flesh. But the fear became real in 1820. The whaling ship Essex was rammed by a sperm whale in the middle of the Pacific, not accidentally, deliberately. The whale struck the ship twice, stove in the hull, and sank it. The crew spent months adrift in lifeboats. Some resorted to cannibalism to survive. The survivors told stories of a whale that seemed aware, angry, vengeful. Herman Melville heard those stories, and 30 years later he wrote Moby Dick. The white whale wasn't fiction. It was fear given a name. Fear of something massive and powerful that lived in a world we couldn't enter, but that could reach up and destroy us anyway. In the 1700s, sperm whales became the most valuable animals on Earth. Not because of what they were, because of what they carried. Inside that massive head, packed into the spermaceti organ, was oil, clear, odourless, and unlike anything else in nature. It didn't smoke when it burned. It didn't freeze in winter. It lubricated machinery better than anything humans had ever discovered. And it lit lamps, brighter and cleaner than any other fuel. Spermaceti oil powered the Industrial Revolution. It lit entire cities. It kept factory machines running. It was liquid gold. And so the hunt began. Whaling ships left ports in New England, travelling across entire oceans for months, sometimes years at a time. Crews scanning the horizon every day, looking for that telltale blow. The moment they spotted one, the chase started. Small boats launched, harpoons ready, rowing toward animals the size of buses. Whales thrashing in agony, the ocean turning red. For most animals
their
on
blows
Earth,
turning
life
from
happens
breath
in the light
to blood.
But sperm whales live in a world
and the
almost
sounds
no
they made
creature ever enters.
low, mournful
A
calls
vertical
that carried
universe
for miles
stretching
underwater.
miles beneath the surface.
Panic sounds, distress
Has never
calls to the
existed.
rest of the pod.
What makes
Just
other
their
whales
size,
heard them, and they
or
learned.
their brain, or their
Sperm
power.
whale pods
It's how little we
started
actually know
fleeing
about
at the sight of ships.
For an animal as big as an airplane,
Mothers position
they are
themselves between
practically
boats
invisible.
and their calves.
They spend more
Some
than
fought
70% of their lives
smashing
in a zone
boats with
humans
their
cannot
tails,
reach.
dragging
A
crews
place so
underwater.
deep, but they
Our
couldn't fight
submarines
harpoon.
struggle to survive for
They
even a
couldn't
few minutes.
outrun ships with
And almost
sails
none of
later
it
steam
has
engines.
ever been witnessed. By the
But
mid-1800s,
sperm whales,
the oceans were full
we
of
study
whaling
shadows,
fleets. Echoes,
American
scars,
ships,
British.
They are the closest
Dutch,
thing Earth
Japanese,
have been terrifying.
all hunting
but in
the
the
same
sense of
animal,
being unknown.
driving populations
Even their
toward
daily
collapse.
routines are a mystery.
Some areas
We
that
still
once
don't
hosted
know how they
hundreds of
choose
whales
when to
saw their
dive,
numbers drop
or
to
how long they
single
truly
digits.
sleep.
But
or
sperm
how they
whales
navigate
are slow to
oceans
recover.
the size of continents.
Females don't reach sexual
Sometimes
maturity until
scientists
they're 9
observe
years old.
entire groups of sperm
Pregnancies
whales just
last 15 months. A single calf every 5 to 7 years.
Sometimes they
you can't
tilt
sustain
their
a population
bodies,
that
positioning
reproduces that
themselves to
slowly
read the echoes
when you're
better.
killing thousands.
Sometimes they
annually.
circle slowly,
By
clicking
the early
in patterns that
1900s,
sound almost
sperm
conversational.
whale populations had crashed.
And in rare moments,
Some
moments
estimates
that
suggest
leave
we
people
killed over 1
shaking,
million of them,
they
maybe
respond.
more. Entire
These aren't
regional
coincidences.
populations were wiped out.
These are interactions.
Genetic diversity collapsed. Because,
And then
here's what
finally
breaks
in
you.
1986,
these animals have
the
brains
global
6
whaling
times
moratorium
larger than
took
ours.
effect.
They possess
Too
the
late
same
for many,
neural
but just in time
structures
for
linked to
some.
compassion, love, and
Sperm
language
whale
in
numbers
humans.
have slowly
And they've
recovered.
had them for 15
Not to what they
million
were,
years
nothing
longer
close,
than we have. But enough
They
that
might
they're
be
no
speaking
longer on the
one of the most
immediate edge of
sophisticated
extinction.
languages on Earth.
They survived, barely.
And despite
we nearly erased
everything
them from
we've
the
done to
planet,
them,
but we
the
never
centuries
understood
of
them.
slaughter,
To
the
understand
near
who
extinction,
sperm whales
when we
really
enter their
are,
world,
we have to go
defenseless
back
and
to the
curious.
deep. They don't flee.
Here's the thing about
They don't
diving
attack.
3,000
They
meters
turn
below
around.
the
They try
surface.
to understand us.
The pressure at
Giants
that
with the
depth
power to
is
kill,
roughly
choosing
300
instead to
times
communicate,
what we
to
experience
connect
at sea level.
We hunted them
Enough to
to
crush
the
a
edge
car
of extinction.
into a cube.
And
Enough
still,
to implode
they
a
let us
submarine
close
if
enough
it's
to
not built
realize we're in the
perfectly.
presence of
And
an
yet,
intelligence
sperm
we've
whales
barely
do this
begun to
dozens of
comprehend.
times a day,
A
holding
mind
their breath for
reaching
over an
out
hour,
to meet ours,
then casually
For
swimming
centuries,
back to the
humans
surface
only
like
knew
it's
sperm
nothing.
whales from the surface.
They shouldn't exist,
and everything
but they
about
do.
them felt, and every part of their body is a solution to a problem that would kill anything else. Start with the head. That massive square 9-meter-long battering ram isn't just for show. It's a biological sonar cannon. Inside is an organ called the spermaceti, filled with up to a ton of waxy oil. Sound originates deep in the whale's nasal passages, travels through this oil, which focuses it like an acoustic lens, then
They don't
fires
attack.
forward in a
They
directional
turn around.
beam. They try to understand
result,
us. Giants with the
clicks,
power to kill,
registering at
choosing instead to
230
communicate,
decibels.
to connect.
For
We
context,
hunted them to
a
the
jet
edge of
engine at
extinction,
full throttle,
and
is
still, they let us
140
close enough to
decibels.
realize we're
We're
in the
talking
presence
about
of an
sound
intelligence
energy
thousands
we've
of
barely
times
begun
more
to
intense.
comprehend.
Loud enough
A mind
that divers have
reaching
reported
out to
feeling
meet
the
ours.
clicks pass through
For
their
centuries,
chest,
humans
like a
only knew
physical
sperm
punch.
whales from
Now
the
look at the
surface.
body, and everything about them felt
Sperm
wrong.
whales
Don't just hold their breath. They actively collapse their lungs during descent. This prevents nitrogen from dissolving into their blood, the same process that gives human divers the bends. Their ribs are flexible, bending inward under pressure instead of snapping. Their blood carries hemoglobin concentrations far higher than ours, binding oxygen more efficiently. And their muscles, packed with myoglobin, a protein that stores oxygen directly in tissue, so much of it that their flesh is almost black. When the whale dives, it's not just relying on the air in its lungs, it's running on oxygen stored in every fibre of muscle in its body. The heart itself is a masterpiece of biological engineering. At the surface, 60 beats per minute. During a dive, it drops to 10. The whale is essentially putting itself into a controlled state of near shutdown. For most animals on
Redirecting
Earth,
blood
life
only
happens
to the
in the
brain
light,
and
but
critical
sperm
muscles.
whales live in a world
Everything else
almost
goes
no
dormant,
creature ever enters.
and then
there's the brain, 6 times larger than ours, the largest brain on Earth. Not necessarily the smartest. Intelligence doesn't scale linearly with size, but structured in ways we're only beginning to understand. Practically invisible. Massive regions. They spend more than
devoted to
70% of their
processing
lives in a
sound.
zone humans cannot reach. Neural
A place so
pathways
deep,
designed
our
for submarines struggle to
three-dimensional
survive for
spatial
even a
mapping
few
in
minutes
complete darkness.
and almost none of it has ever
This
been
isn't
witnessed.
just an animal that adapted
but
to the
sperm
deep.
whales.
We
This is an
study
animal
shadows,
that rewrote the
echoes,
rules of what's
scars.
biologically possible.
They are the closest
But
thing
surviving
Earth
being
being
terrifying
requires
but in the
more
sense
than
of being
engineering.
unknown. It requires
Even their daily
intelligence.
routines are a mystery.
Sperm whales
We still
don't just
don't
click
know
for
how they
hunting.
choose
when
they
to
click to
dive,
talk.
or how
The
long
patterns
they
are
truly
called
sleep,
coders,
or how they navigate
rhythmic
oceans
sequences
the size
of
of clicks
continents
that sound almost like Morse
Sometimes
code.
scientists
1-1-3,
observed entire groups of
4-2-1,
sperm whales just floating vertically in the water,
3-1-2,
motionless,
Each
like a
pattern
drifting
distinct,
forest of
each
grey
one
pillars
repeated,
sleeping upright.
each one recognized by other
No one
whales
knows
across
why.
miles of ocean.
Then there's the way
and
they
here's where it gets
communicate.
strange. Sperm
Different
whales
clans have
speak
different
in
dialects.
sequences of clicks.
Called
Whales in the
coders.
Caribbean don't
Patterns
click
so
the same
complex,
way as
some
whales
scientists
off the
think
coast
they
of
may
Japan.
form regional dialects.
Pods that travel
or
together
possibly the
develop
early structure
shared
of a true
clicking
language.
patterns, signature sequences.
Imagine an
that
animal
identify them
whose
to other
brain
groups.
is 6
It's
times
not
larger
instinct,
than ours.
it's learned.
Living in a world
Calves
we've never
don't
seen.
instinctively know their
Speaking in a
clan's
code,
coder.
we still don't
They're
understand.
taught by listening, by
Every
mimicking,
once in a while,
by
the deep allows a
practicing until
glimpse.
they get it right.
And when it does,
This
it
is
changes
culture
everything.
in the true anthropological
Divers have
sense of
encountered
the word.
sperm whales,
But it
in
goes
moments
deeper.
that shouldn't be possible.
Some scientists
You're hanging there in
believe
open
sperm
water,
whale
weightless,
coders,
vulnerable,
vulnerable syntax,
and then something
structural
massive
rules
moves
that
toward
allow
you
them to
through the
combine
blue.
clicks in meaningful
The
ways,
clicks
like
start
words
softer than you'd
forming
expect.
sentences, deliberate. If true,
the whale is
it would
scanning
mean
you
sperm
from the
whales
inside
aren't
out.
just communicating.
Your lungs,
They
your
are
ribs,
speaking.
your heartbeat,
In
building a full
2021,
three-dimensional image
researchers
of what you
launched
are.
the CETI project,
And then it
the
just
Cetacean
hovers there,
Translation
watching.
Initiative. Using
Sometimes they
AI
tilt their
to analyze
bodies,
thousands of hours
positioning
of recorded
themselves
whale
to
clips.
read the echoes better.
The goal?
Sometimes they
Circle
decode the
slowly,
language, clicking in
find
patterns that sound
humans
almost
can't
conversational.
detect. Understand
And in
what they're
rare
actually
moments,
saying.
moments
We're not
that
there
leave
yet,
people shaking,
but early results
they
suggest
respond.
the complexity is
These aren't
staggering,
coincidences.
far beyond what we
These
see
are
in dolphins
interactions
or other cetaceans.
Because
Here's
some
what
researchers
breaks
think
these
sperm
animals
whale
have brains
communication might be
6
more
times larger
sophisticated
than ours.
than
They
human
possess the
language,
same
not
neural
in content,
structures linked
but
to
in
construction.
compassion, love, and
A
language
single
in
sperm
humans.
whale,
And they've had them
influences
for
life
15
across an
million
entire
years
ocean
longer than we have.
in ways we didn't
They
understand
might be speaking
until
one of the
recently.
most sophisticated languages on Earth.
Sperm whales don't just live in the deep.
And despite
They live
everything
between
we've done to them,
worlds, the centuries
diving
of
thousands
slaughter,
of meters
the
to
near
hunt,
extinction,
then rising
when
back
we enter
to the
their
surface
world
to breathe,
defenseless and
rest,
curious,
socialize,
they don't
and
flee.
care for their young.
They don't attack.
They
travel
turn
in
around,
tight-knit
they try to
family
understand
groups,
us,
led by older
giants with the
females,
power
the
to kill,
matriarchs,
choosing
who
instead
guide
to
the pod
communicate,
across
to
entire
connect.
ocean basins.
We hunted them to the edge
These
of extinction.
migrations aren't
And still,
random
they let us
wandering.
close enough
They're
to realize
inheritance.
we're in the presence of an
Roots
intelligence
passed down
we've
from
barely
grandmother
begun to
to mother
comprehend.
to calf.
A mind
Lines
reaching
carved
out
through
to
the
meet
ocean
ours.
that trace
For centuries,
feeding
humans
ground.
only knew sperm whales
Warm
from the
water
surface.
nurseries and ancient safe zones where calves were once raised before the age of ships and engines.
And with every dive they make and every breath they take at the surface, they change the ocean around them. Here's something no one expected. Sperm whales fertilize the sea. When they rise from the deep, they bring nutrients, especially iron.
For most animals
from
on
waters,
Earth,
life happens
sunlight
in the
never
light,
reaches up
but
to the
sperm
surface where
whales
plankton
live in a
live.
world almost no
And
creature
plankton
ever
are the
enters.
foundation of everything,
A vertical
the base
universe
of the food
stretching
chain.
miles
The
beneath
producers
the
of
surface.
half the oxygen on
has
Earth
never existed.
One whale
What
can
makes
stimulate
just
as
their
much carbon
size,
capture as
or their
thousands of
brain,
trees.
or their power.
A pod of
It's how
whales
little we actually
may
know
influence
about them.
climate cycles.
For an animal as big
An
as an
entire
airplane,
population, they are practically
planet-level
consequences.
They spend
They
more
don't
than
just
70%
70%
of their lives in a zone
build it.
humans cannot reach.
And even in death,
a place
their
so
work
deep,
continues.
our submarines
A
struggle
whale
to survive
fall,
for even a few
the
minutes.
sinking of a dead
And
whale
almost
to the
none of
seafloor
it has ever
creates
been
a city in
witnessed.
the dark.
But sperm
A
whales,
single whale.
we study
can feed an
shadows,
entire deep
echoes,
sea ecosystem
scars.
for 100
They are the
years.
closest thing Earth has being
Crabs,
terrifying,
eels,
but in the sense of being
worms,
unknown.
Sharks.
Even their
daily
thousands of
routines
animals
are a mystery.
survive because a
We still
giant
don't
sank
know
into
how
the
they
abyss.
choose when to
It's
dive,
one of the most dramatic
or how long they
transfers
truly
of energy
sleep,
in nature,
or how they navigate
life becoming
oceans
like
the size of
death
continents, becoming an entire
Sometimes
world.
scientists
This is
observe
why
entire
sperm
groups
whales
of
are unlike
sperm
any other
whales,
whale.
just floating vertically in the
Baleen
water,
whales,
motionless,
filter feed,
like a drifting forest
orcas
of
hunt
grey
intelligently,
pillars.
sleeping upright.
But sperm whales,
No one
dive
knows
deeper,
why.
stay
Then,
longer.
there's the way they
communicate more
communicate.
complexly,
Sperm
form
whales
richer
speak
family
in
structures,
sequences of
and
clips
shape the
called
ocean in ways
coders.
no other
Patterns
species
so
does.
complex, some
They
scientists
are
think they may form
engineers,
regional
matriarchs,
dialects,
hunters,
or possibly the
teachers,
early structure of a true
navigators,
language.
and the living memory of the sea.